All right, welcome everybody to the first online chess club of the year. This is Coach Chance. I'll be going through about a 20-minute lesson or a little bit less here, and then we'll get you guys off to play a game. So today, we're just going to go back over some opening principles that I've taught you guys before, or if you're new, then these are new to you and are very important at the start of the game for you to pay attention to. So the first principle that we're going to be looking at is the control of the center. We're going to call these four squares right here E4, D4, E5, and D5. Those are the center of the board, and those are very, very important squares at the start of the game. And so in order to take control of the center, we're going to want to put pieces into the center. A very popular move that a lot of people start off with is e4, where we put this pawn into the center, and we also attack this other center square right here, d5. And when black sees that you've done that, they oftentimes play this move, e5, which takes the other two center squares that we did not. So, now that we have established some control on the center, we want more control on the center, and we want to start developing our pieces, moving our pieces out so that they start getting into the game. A general rule of thumb is to get your minor pieces, your knights, and your bishops out first. And so, a very common move in this situation is to go knight to f3, which gets one of your knights out, and it attacks the other two squares that we do not have control of in the center. So keeping in mind that we want to control that center while also attacking the pawn and the square that it's guarding as well. Black oftentimes goes ahead and defends those two squares, trying to keep its control of the center. So now we need to figure out, okay, we have three minor pieces left that we want to get out. Since we can get out the bishop, let's say that I move out the bishop. This is a good spot for the bishop. It's open, it's attacking a pawn, it's got some control of the center, and just overall, good developing move. We're getting our bishop out and into the game. We have our knight out into the game, and we're still attacking the center. Let's say that black also decides that they're going to develop. Okay, now black is also getting out their minor pieces. This is a normal development game for both sides. So now we still need to get this knight and this bishop out. The knight is the easiest to get out, and so we'll just go ahead and move our knight here. Make our control on those two center squares even stronger than it already is, and we just keep developing our pieces. Almost all of our minor pieces are out now, and it's just this bishop that we have to get out. Of course, black is also going to take their minor piece out, and they only have their bishop to develop. White will often play this move as a move to open up this bishop to get out in this way. Another move to get out would perhaps be b3, but in this situation, it's worse to have your bishop here than active over here. So, now that we've opened our bishop out, black will probably open their bishop out as well. And we have some options as to where we put our bishop. For the sake of this demonstration, let's say that we put the bishop here, pinning the queen. Or pinning the knight to the queen, excuse me. And this is all still normal stuff. Black is now obviously in trouble. They can't move this knight without losing their queen, so they have a couple of options. They can either develop like normal, they can attempt to even pin our knight to our queen, or they can try and move that bishop away. Both of which are good moves, but for the purposes of our development lesson, we'll say that they move to bishop to g4 and develop their bishop as well. So now we have all of our minor pieces developed. This is very good for us. Now we just have to develop 1, 2, 3, 4 more pieces. And we don't even necessarily have to develop the king, but we will probably end up developing the king through castling. So, we have to decide whether we are going to castle kingside or whether we are going to castle queenside. In this demonstration, it really does not matter which way we castle. Again, it's just a demonstration. But I like to castle queenside in my games most of the time, so I'm going to go ahead and move my queen up and break the pin on the knight. I'm sorry. I suppose instead of doing that, we should probably get rid of that bishop first. That's probably a better move than trying to get rid of that knight after bishop takes, pawn takes, and from our earlier lessons in person, you'll recall that our 2 stacked pawns are not very good. So after black withdraws his bishop, actually probably this way to keep the pin, we'll go ahead and push on forward, and black will fall back. Now we can slide our queen forward, like we were planning on doing before. Let's say, for posterity's sake, that that black moves their queen out as well. We castle queenside, and they castle kingside. And now look at both sides here. Our kings are safe, guarded by other pieces. Our minor pieces are out and active. Our rooks are connected to one another. Another very, very important thing that we've gone over before. And our pieces are just generally in decent spots. Once we have all of this stuff done, then we can start to formulate a plan like we've talked about in earlier lessons in person. And next week, we'll be going over how to develop a plan again for any new students that we have. But for right now, this is the basic development strategy that you should be going for. Again, we'll start over so that we can make a brief summary of how we want to develop. Number 1, control the center. We want to attack these 4 center squares and try and keep a hold of them, because they're very, very good squares to control at the start of the game. Next, we want to take our minor pieces out, our knights and our bishops, like so. This is how we did it in our game. It doesn't have to be like this. However, this is how we accomplished a thing. The next thing we want to do is either castle kingside or queenside. If you want to castle queenside, of course, you move your queen out. After castling, our rooks are connected and are a lot stronger afterwards. Of course, these principles that I've talked about today don't always have to be followed. There are times in openings where you might, say, move a couple of extra pawns, or for some reason you don't castle because it's not safe to castle. But generally, when you're going through the opening, it is important to note that you should be following these guidelines. I will repeat that one more time. This set of rules is not always something that you need to follow, but you should have a very, very good reason for breaking them. So, now that we've gone through what our opening rules are, let's see how you guys do on your own by doing them. So now that we've gone over an example of how the opening rules are supposed to go, let's see how well you guys do on your own. So what I'm going to do is I am going to be making a series of moves that are different from the example that we went over before. When I ask you to pause the video, I want you to remind yourselves of the opening rules that we've gone over and think to yourself what would be a good move in this situation. Then I will give you a series of good moves, multiple different moves that you could have done in that situation in order to correctly follow the guidelines that we've put out. So, before we even begin, I'll ask you to pause right now and ask yourself what should be our first move. All right, now that we're back, the two moves that I have in mind to attack these four squares in the center are e4 and d4. In this case, we'll be playing e4, and black responds e5. I'd like you to pause again and see what would be our next best move on the board for development. Pause now. All right. So the next couple of moves that we want to do are either developing our knight to f3, our bishop to c4, or our knight to c3. All three of these develop a knight or a bishop, but we'll move bishop to c4 in this example. And black will respond with knight to c6. Now, what would be our next move? Pause now. All right, just like before, we've exhausted the bishop to c4 move, so now we only have the knight to c3 and knight to f3 left. Those are very good moves for us to make. In this case, I'll move knight to f3, and black will respond knight to f6. Now, what should be our next move? Pause now. All right, so since we've already moved our knight to f3 and our bishop to c4, and if you've noticed that black is attacking our pawn right here, we should probably move knight c3 to defend against that. And black shall respond with bishop to c5. Now, what should be our next move? Pause now. Yeah, probably d3, right? We'll probably want to get this bishop out so that we can start attacking. And black will go ahead and castle right now. What should be our next move? Right, so we want to get this bishop out. In this case, I'll play bishop to d2, which is a much safer move than bishop to g5. And black will go ahead and play d6. What should be our next move? Okay, so here we have a couple of options. We'll next want to castle our king either queenside or kingside. Right now, if you castled kingside, then that's a fine move on my end. Otherwise, if you wanted to castle queenside, you could slide the queen out here and castle queenside. But in this case, we'll castle kingside, and black will go ahead and play bishop to g4. In this case, we're already mostly developed as much as we want to be. So, we're essentially done with this example. What I want you guys to do next, as you head into your games for the week, is to try out these opening guidelines when you're playing your games. Try and make sure you're controlling the center, getting your knights and bishops out first, and then trying to find a good way to castle. From there, you guys should be able to have a pretty even game. So, when I come back at the end of practice to check on you, we'll go over exactly how it went. Thank you guys, and have a great game.